The call came from an unexpected source.
You want me to do what?
The drop-off was mysterious. What could it possibly be?
I wonder what this could possibly be.
That seemed like an overly dramatic intro. Anyway, this is a Unitree Z1 from Dave's Armoury, and what we'll be doing today is we'll be resoldering surface mount fuses into the base here. So what happened was, this circuit board had surface mount fuses soldered directly to the board, and somehow this robot arm got overloaded in some way, and it blew those fuses. Now, in order to change those fuses, you have to desolder them from the board, and then resolder new fuses on. But today we're going to actually put those fuses in a holder, which will make it much easier to change. So let's get into it. Alright, so here is the robot arm, and here's the circuit board on which we have to do work. So here's where the surface mount fuses were soldered. And the whole idea behind a fuse is that if too much current is trying to pass through it, so let's say you have a 10 amp fuse, and you're trying to draw 11 amps through that fuse is going to blow, so no more power can flow through it. And what you have to do then is you have to come and replace that fuse and maybe fix whatever was drawing too much current in the first place, and then your circuit will be back to operation again. So having fuses soldered directly to the board makes it a little bit more difficult to change. But I can understand why the manufacturer decided to go with surface mount fuses soldered directly to the board. Number one, is cheaper than buying surface mount fuses with holders, and the other thing is there isn't a whole lot of room between the circuit board and the mounting platform for the robot arm. So we'll take some dimensions on this fuse's footprint, and then we'll research online what kind of fuses we can get for this. Alright, so there are a few factors that you want to keep in mind when measuring a footprint. So number one is the width, number two is the total length of the two pads, number three is the gap in between the pads, and another thing to be aware of is how high your part is going to stick up. So in my case, I only have about 6 millimeters between the board and my mounting platform. So I'm going to want to have at least a few millimeters of clearance there. So after some searching on DigiKey, what I found was a surface mount fuse holder and fuse for that. So this is a 10 amp fuse here, and it goes on this holder. And after checking the data sheet here, this will perfectly fit my pad size here. So this is the recommended pad layout, and that perfectly works with the pad size I have on my circuit board. And then also the other thing to keep in mind is the height here. So this is 3.8 millimeters, and that'll be fine. The fuse actually is a little bit lower than the holder itself. You can kind of see on this diagram. That'll work out well. I'll still have a little bit more than 2 millimeters of clearance, and that should be good because other things on the circuit board are about that high anyway. Good, so let's order these parts and solder them in. Alright, so I soldered the first one in here, and what we'll do is we'll work on the second one here. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to wick these pads clean. They're pretty good, but we could get them a little bit better. So we'll take some solder wick and we'll wick these clean. Alright, so after wicking this off here, so what we're going to do next is we're going to put a dollop of solder here and a dollop of solder here. So I did do a previous video on how to do surface mount component soldering. That applied more for resistors and capacitors, This is something a little bit fancy. This fuse, most of the contact area is on the bottom here, and you can kind of see in this one, it pretty much covers up this whole footprint. So we're going to have to do something a little bit special here. If you're looking for how to solder resistors or capacitors, I have another video on that. There'll be a link to that in the description down below. So what we'll do is we'll put on some flux. We'll clean this up with some alcohol real quick. There we go. And then we'll get our fuse into place here. So we'll try to get her right in the middle, in the middle of these two pads, this one here and this one here. And we'll want to leave a little bit of gap on both sides, just so what we can do is we can come in with our soldering iron and then just touch the corner of the pad. Here I moved up to this side just so we can kind of see what's going on. Alright, so what I'll do is once we have this lined up, what I'm going to do is I'm going to come with my soldering iron. I have a little dollop of solder on the tip here, and I'm just going to touch the metal part in the pad here and warm this up. There we go, you can see it's kind of warming up there. Alright, that should be good. And we'll do the same thing down here. So we'll just we'll put a dollop of solder on the iron. And we'll come and touch the metal part of the fuse and part of the pad here too. Alright. Now what we'll do is we'll just try to wiggle it off. So I'll grab with my tweezers here. I'm just going to double check that it's not going to fall off, or we're making good contact here. Yep, that's good. So that's hard on there, which is good. So we'll clean this area up with some alcohol, and then we'll put the fuses in. And then we'll just check to make sure that we're making good contact across these two fuses, and then we should be good. Alright, that's looking good. So what we'll do now is we'll put our two fuses in. That's one in. And there's the other one. In order to take these fuses out, it's fairly simple. You can take some tweezers and grab the fuse and just kind of wiggle it out. Perfect. And then you can put a new one in. Perfect. So this way, if you ever blow a fuse again, then you can just pop it out and put a new one back on without having to resolder this. So that's good. So what we're going to check now is we're just going to test everything, make sure that we're just going to test this just to make sure that we have good conductivity between this side and this side of the pad here, and then we should be good. Just to double check that the fuses we put in were good. Good. Good, so that's all the soldering we have to do. Thanks for watching this video today. Hope you learned something. If you did, please subscribe. That would really help my channel. And a big thanks to Dave's Armoury for allowing me to work on this robot arm. That was a great experience for me. And you should go check out his channel. He does a whole bunch of really amazing things over there. And I'll see you next time.